28,160 spikes, driven by hand, in one day. That's the math for 10 miles of railroad track. Each spike gets hit 3 times. Tap to set it. 2 heavy strokes to drive it home. 84,480 hammer swings in 12 hours by men whose names nobody recorded. This is how America built 1,907 miles of transcontinental railroad between 1863 and 1869. Not with machines, not with technology, with sledgehammers and human muscle. 10 spikes per rail, 400 rails per mile. Do the math, that's 4,000 spikes per mile, times 1,907 miles, equals 7,628,000 spikes. Call it 7.6 million. Every single one driven by hand. 3 strikes each. 22.8 million hammer swings. To connect Omaha to Sacramento, to unite a country split by civil war. The work was done by Irish immigrants who fled famine, by Chinese immigrants paid 30 to 50% less than whites for identical work, by Civil War veterans who found no jobs back east, by freed black laborers seeking new opportunities. They swung sledgehammers until their hands bled, until their shoulders gave out, until their backs broke, and they kept swinging, because the alternative was starvation. This is the story of how the Transcontinental Railroad was actually built, not by visionaries or industrialists, by spike-driving men, whose bodies were the machines. 1862. President Abraham Lincoln signs the Pacific Railway Act while the Civil War rages. The country is split, Union versus Confederacy, North versus South. The railroad is supposed to unite it, connect the coasts, make America truly continental. 2 companies get the contract. Central Pacific Railroad starts in Sacramento, California, building east. Union Pacific Railroad starts in Omaha, Nebraska, building west. They'll meet somewhere in the middle, race each other, get paid by the mile. The company that lays more track makes more money, gets more land grants. The competition is fierce. But first, they need workers, thousands of them, tens of thousands. The work is grueling, dangerous, pays poorly. Finding men willing to do it proves difficult. White American laborers are scarce. Many who respond to job ads quit after days or weeks. The work is too hard, the conditions too brutal. They leave for silver mines in Nevada, for farmland, for anything else. The railroad companies must look elsewhere. Union Pacific turns to Irish immigrants. Thousands flee Ireland during and after the Great Famine. Between 1845 and 1852, 1 million die. Another million emigrate. They arrive in America desperate, willing to work for low wages. Union Pacific hires them. 3,000 initially. Eventually more. The Irish workers live in tents, die from dysentery caused by impure water. But they work. They have no choice. Need to send money home, support families, build new lives. The alternative is return to Ireland where nothing waits but poverty and death. So they stay, they work, they drive spikes. Central Pacific faces different problems. California doesn't have the same immigrant population. Few Irish, few whites willing to work. In January 1865, Central Pacific publishes an ad seeking 5,000 workers. Several hundred white workers respond. Not nearly enough. The company needs thousands more. Charles Crocker, Central Pacific director, suggests hiring Chinese immigrants. The idea meets resistance. White workers protest. Foremen object. The prevailing wisdom says Chinese workers are too weak, too small, can't handle heavy labor, can't endure American conditions. Crocker disagrees. Orders a trial. 50 Chinese workers get hired in 1864. They work well, they work better than the white workers who quit. The company hires more. Eventually, 15,000 to 20,000 Chinese workers build the Central Pacific Railroad. 75% of the workforce, the majority of men who actually construct the hardest section through the Sierra Nevada mountains. Here's what the work actually involves. The track must be laid on a prepared grade. That means grading steep mountainsides, cutting through solid rock, building bridges over canyons, blasting tunnels through granite, all done with hand tools, pickaxes, shovels, black powder, later nitroglycerin. The Chinese workers do the most dangerous tasks, hanging in wicker baskets over cliff faces, chiseling holes for explosives, setting charges, lighting fuses, pulling themselves up before the blast. Sometimes they make it, sometimes they don't. An estimated 1,500 Chinese workers die in explosions and rock slides. 1 in 10 Chinese laborers working on the Sierra Nevada section, dead. The Irish on Union Pacific don't face mountains. They face plains. Seems easier, isn't. They lay track across Wyoming, Nebraska, Utah, freezing winters, scorching summers, no shelter, no protection. They live in tents that blow away in storms, die from exposure, from disease, from accidents. The death tolls aren't precisely recorded. Companies don't want attention, don't want scrutiny. Workers die, get buried, get replaced. Operations continue. The actual spike driving process is methodical, brutal, repetitive. Here's how it works. The grade is prepared first, earth moved, leveled, compacted, then ties get laid. Heavy wooden beams, 10 feet long, 8 inches wide, 6 inches thick, weigh maybe 200 pounds each, must be placed precisely, 2 feet apart, perpendicular to the track direction. Workers carry them, position them, align them. 400 ties per mile of track. That's 764,800 ties for the full 1,907 miles. All carried and placed by hand. Then comes the rail, iron rails, 30 feet long, weighing 500 pounds each. Takes multiple men to lift. Carry, position. They come from rail cars. Flat cars loaded with rails and hardware. Teams of workers, mostly Irish on Union Pacific, run the rails forward, literally run, carrying 500 pounds between them. They place the rails on the ties. 2 rails parallel, 4 feet, 8.5 inches apart. That's the gauge, the standard, must be exact. Gaugers follow behind. Measure, adjust, make sure it's precise. If the gauge is wrong, trains can't run. The entire system fails. Can't be off by even half an inch. Once the rails are positioned, the spike men come. They carry spikes. Drop them on the grade, 2 spikes to each tie. The spikes are iron, 6 inches long, maybe half an inch square, pointed at one end, flat head at the other. Each spike weighs about a pound. Doesn't sound like much, but multiply it. 10 spikes per rail, 2 rails per track. That's 20 spikes per tie length of track, 400 ties per mile, 8,000 spikes per mile, times 1,907 miles, 15,256,000 spikes total. Actually more, because you need spikes at splice bars where rails join, and replacement spikes when some bend or break. The real number is probably closer to 20 million spikes, all distributed by hand, carried in buckets, maybe 50 spikes per bucket, 40 pounds of iron. Walk along the grade, drop 2 spikes at each tie, 8,000 times per mile. The spike distributors walk the entire length, bending, dropping, standing, stepping forward, repeating. Their backs scream by midday. But the work continues, must continue. The schedule demands it. Then come the hammermen, the spike drivers, the men who do the actual driving. Each one carries a sledgehammer, 10 to 12 pounds. Wooden handle maybe 3 feet long, steel head, flat on both faces. The hammer itself costs about $2 in 1860s money. That's $64 modern. The company provides it, replaces it when handles break, which they do. Constantly. The wood splits from repeated impacts, from moisture, from stress. A hammer might last a week, maybe 2. The technique is specific. You don't just swing wildly. That wastes energy. Bends spikes, misses strikes, breaks handles, injures you faster. The proper method, position the spike. Some spike drivers place it themselves. Others have a partner who holds it vertical, steadies it. This is dangerous. If the hammer strikes the partner's hand, fingers are crushed, bones shattered. But it's faster than working alone. The spike driver decides. Most work solo once they develop skill. Tap the spike first, light tap. Just enough to set it in the wood. Give it bite. The point penetrates maybe quarter inch, enough to stand on its own. Now the real strikes. Raise the hammer, all the way overhead, full extension, arms straight. The weight lifts above your head. Your shoulders strain. Your back engages. Everything tightens to support the weight. Then swing down. Fast. Don't muscle it. Let gravity do the work. The hammer accelerates, builds momentum. Your arms guide it. Keep it on target. At the last moment, your whole body engages. Your core tightens. Your legs brace. The hammer strikes. The impact reverberates up your arms, through your shoulders. Your hands absorb the shock. The spike drives deeper, maybe an inch, maybe 2, depends on wood density, angle of strike, the spike's condition, second strike, same process, raise, extend, swing, strike. The spike goes deeper, maybe 3 to 4 inches total now. Close to home, third strike, final drive. This one must count. The spike must go flush. If it's proud, sticking up, the rail won't sit properly, creates a gap, causes problems, so this strike is critical. Full power, perfect aim, the hammer comes down, drives the spike home, flush, perfect. The rail sits solidly on the tie, secured by the spike, 2 seconds per spike if you're good, 3 seconds if you're new. The average spike driver handles maybe 1 position per rail, one side, one spot, walks down the line, each tie gets him, his spike, that's it. Move to the next tie, repeat. 8 men might drive spikes for a single section of track, each handling a specific position. Together they create the rhythm, the sound, constant hammering, ringing impacts, steel on steel. And steel on iron. The noise is overwhelming, constant. After hours of this, your ears ring. The sound persists even in silence. Permanent hearing damage is common, universal. Everyone goes partially deaf. No protection exists, no earplugs. Just work through it, accept it. By the end of a 12-hour day, a spike driver has driven maybe 500 to 700 spikes. That's 1,500 to 2,100 hammer swings if the crew is doing 2 miles of track, if they're racing, if they're pushing for speed. The number goes higher, maybe 1,000 spikes, 3,000 swings. Your hands are numb by then, can barely feel the hammer. Your arms move mechanically. Muscle memory, no thought required. Just swing, strike, repeat. Your shoulders burn, deep burning, like something inside is tearing, which it is. Microscopic tears and muscle fibers. Inflammation. Your body consuming itself to maintain the pace. Your back is locked, rigid, moving as little as possible, because any motion beyond the necessary creates fresh pain. You walk stiffly, swing mechanically, drive spikes, until the day ends, until darkness forces a halt. Then you collapse, eat whatever food they provide, sleep in whatever bed or bunk they offer, wake before dawn, do it again. The mathematics are brutal. Let's be precise. 1 mile of track equals 5,280 feet. Standard rail length is 30 feet. That's 176 rails per mile. Each rail requires 10 spikes. That's 1,760 spikes per mile for the rails themselves. But rails come in pairs, so double it. 3,520 spikes per mile just for the rails. Then splice bars, where 2 rails meet end to end, they're joined by splice bars. Metal plates bolted through pre-drilled holes. Each splice requires 4 bolts and typically 4 additional spikes for security. 176 rail ends per mile means 88 splices per trackside. Times 2 sides equals 176 splices per mile. Times 8 additional spikes per splice equals 1,408 more spikes. Add that to the 3,520 rail spikes, gives 4,928 spikes per mile. Call it 5,000 with extras for breakage and replacement. Times 1,907 miles equals 9,535,000 spikes for the complete transcontinental line. Each spike requires 3 strikes on average. Some need 4 if the wood is hard or the spike bends. Some need only 2 if conditions are perfect. 3 is the average. 3 careful, precise, powerful strikes. That's 28,605,000 hammer swings for the entire transcontinental railroad, distributed among thousands of workers over 6 years, but still, 28.6 million hammer swings. Every single one performed by human muscle, human endurance, human pain. When you ride a train across America today, remember that. Every mile of track required 5,000 hammer swings, 15,000 for the round trip, millions of individual human actions, repeated, sustained, endured. That's what railroads cost, not in dollars, in bodies. If you're the kind of person who believes these stories deserve to be remembered, hit subscribe. The men who built the Transcontinental Railroad didn't get recognition, didn't get photographs. The famous Golden Spike ceremony photo shows dignitaries and railroad executives. No Chinese workers visible, no Irish laborers, just the men who profited. Subscribe if you think the actual builders matter more than the owners. The physical toll is immediate and cumulative. Your hands blister first day. The hammer handle rubs skin raw. Blisters form, pop, bleed, reform as calluses. Eventually your palms are thick leather, but before that, every swing hurts. Blood makes the handle slippery. Your grip weakens. The hammer slides, hits wrong, bends spikes, jams thumbs. Your shoulders burn second day. The muscles aren't used to repetitive overhead swinging. They fatigue, cramp, tear microscopically. Inflammation sets in. Moving your arms becomes agony. But you must. The work continues. No breaks, no rest. Just drive spikes or get fired. Your back goes third day. The constant bending, standing, swinging, compresses your spine. The vertebrae grind. The muscles spasm. Lower back pain becomes constant, sharp, shooting down your legs. You can barely straighten up, but you do, because you must. By the end of a week, you're a different person. Physically transformed, leaner, harder, exhausted. Your hands are mangled, your shoulders destroyed, your back screaming, but your body adapts, muscles strengthen, tendons toughen. You learn to work through pain because the alternative is unemployment, starvation, death. So you work, you swing, you drive spikes. The work pace varies. On average, Union Pacific crews lay about 2 miles of track per day. That's 10,000 spikes when you include splice bars. 30,000 hammer swings in a 12-hour day. That's 2,500 swings per hour, 41 per minute, 1 every 1.4 seconds, sustained for 12 hours. That's the average, not exceptional, just normal, expected, required. The pace that keeps you employed. Fall below it and you're fired. Replaced? Someone else will do your job. Someone hungrier. Someone more desperate. On April 28, 1868, Central Pacific attempts a record, 10 miles in one day. Charles Crocker, the director, plans meticulously, prepares everything in advance, pre-positions materials, optimizes the workflow, studies the process, eliminates waste, maximizes efficiency. The day arrives. The workers know what's at stake: pride, reputation, proof of capability. Maybe bonuses, though none are promised. Teams of Irish track layers, 8 men specifically, carry and place rails. They run, actually run, carrying 500-pound rails between them, place them, drop them precisely, return for more at a sprint. Behind them, Chinese gangs, hundreds of them, work in coordinated teams. Some shove rails into position, others ensure gauge is correct. Straighteners keep rails parallel. Levelsmen raise ties where needed. Shovelers add dirt beneath. Tampers compact everything. Move on to the next section. The spike drivers come last, walking down the line in formation, each man handling one specific spike position, driving it, moving to the next tie, never stopping, never varying. The rhythm is precise, mechanical. Human beings functioning as machines, following a choreographed process refined through years of practice. The numbers achieved are staggering. 10 miles requires 3,520 rails laid and positioned. 25,800 ties placed and aligned, 28,160 spikes driven home. In one day, 12 hours. The spikes alone, 28,160 times 3 strikes equals 84,480 hammer swings. By the spike drivers alone. Doesn't count all the other hammer work. Doesn't count tie placement, rail adjustment, nothing else, just the spike driving. The crew works 12 hours. That's 7,040 hammer swings per hour for spike driving. 117 swings per minute, 2 swings per second. Sustained, coordinated, successful. For 12 straight hours, no significant breaks, no long rests, just continuous motion. The record is achieved. 10 miles, one day. Witnesses include Army officers, military observers. They praise Crocker and the workers, note the achievement for military records, recognize the organizational feat, the physical accomplishment. But the workers themselves? Most remain unnamed, unrecorded, unrecognized. Just labor, replaceable, expendable. The 8 Irish tracklayers who placed 3,520 rails get mentioned in some accounts, but not by name. Just 8 Irishmen. The Chinese workers who numbered in the hundreds get mentioned as Chinese gangs. Not individuals, not people, just labor units. This is intentional. The achievement is credited to Crocker, to Central Pacific, to American ingenuity, not to the men who actually did it, whose bodies performed the work, whose muscles drove the spikes, whose sweat made it possible. The pay reflects this attitude. Chinese workers earned $26 per month in 1864, working 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours per day. That's roughly $1 per day, about $32 in modern money. White workers earn $30 to $50 per month plus room and board. The Chinese workers must pay for their own food, their own supplies, their own lodging. They net less than whites for identical work, sometimes 30% less, sometimes 50% less. Union Pacific Irish workers earn $2 to $3 per day, about $64 to $96 modern. Better than Chinese wages, but still barely subsistence. A family of 4 in the 1860s needs maybe $400 to $500 annually to survive. A worker earning $2.50 per day, 6 days per week, makes $780 annually. If he works every single week, no illness, no injury, no unemployment, that leaves maybe $280 to $380 per year after basic survival. No savings, no security. One accident means financial ruin, and accidents are common, constant, inevitable. Men die from spike driving, not the driving itself usually, the accidents around it. A rail slips during placement, falls, crushes a worker's foot, leg, torso, the weight is too much, bones shatter, internal injuries prove fatal. No medical care exists in remote locations. Nearest doctor might be days away. By the time help arrives, infection is set in. Gangrene, blood poisoning, death. A spike bends during driving, the hammer glances off, hits a worker's hand, smashes fingers, breaks bones. The hand swells, can't work, can't drive spikes, can't earn wages. The worker gets fired, replaced, sent away with nothing. His family starves unless they have other income. A sledgehammer handle breaks mid-swing. The head flies off, becomes a projectile, hits another worker, skull fracture, death. These accidents don't get recorded individually, just aggregate numbers. Workers killed during construction, unknown. The companies don't want specifics, don't want attention, don't want liability. So deaths get buried literally and figuratively. New workers get hired. Operations continue. The working conditions beyond the physical labor are brutal. The workers live in camps. Union Pacific workers live in portable bunkhouses. Rough wooden structures on rails. Follow the construction. The bunkhouses are crowded, maybe 50 to 100 men per car. Bunks stacked 3 high, 18 inches between levels. You sleep inches from other men. No privacy, no space, no quiet. The smell is overwhelming. Sweat, dirt, unwashed bodies, No bathing facilities in early years. Maybe a creek if you're lucky. Cold water, no soap. You wash rarely. Your clothes rarely. You smell like everyone else. The food is basic. Beef, bread, coffee, beans, potatoes, high calorie, high fat, fills you up, keeps you working, but monotonous. Day after day, week after week, the same meals, the same routine. Wake before dawn, eat quickly, work 12 hours, eat again, sleep, repeat, 6 days a week. Sometimes 7 when deadlines approach. No variation, no relief, just work. The seasons bring different challenges. Summer on the plains is scorching. Temperatures reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Sometimes higher, no shade, no relief. The sun beats down constantly. The iron rails heat to the point where touching them barehanded causes burns. The spike drivers must work anyway. Swinging hammers in heat, sweat pours. Dehydration is constant threat. Water supplies are often contaminated, cause dysentery, cholera. Workers die from disease more than accidents in summer months. The heat exhaustion is cumulative. By midday, men collapse, can't continue, get pulled aside, replaced. If they recover by next day, they work again. If not, they're fired. No exceptions, no accommodations. Winter is worse, Wyoming winters especially, Nebraska, Utah. Temperatures drop below zero, stay there for weeks. The wind cuts through any clothing. The workers have minimal cold weather gear. Maybe a coat, gloves if they're lucky, but you can't drive spikes wearing gloves. Can't grip the hammer properly. Can't feel the strikes. So gloves come off, bare hands in below zero temperatures, swinging sledgehammers. The metal hammer freezes to your skin when you pause, strips skin when you pull away. Your fingers go numb. Stop working, must warm them or risk frostbite. But warming takes time, costs productivity. The foremen pressure you, keep working. So you work with numb hands. Can't feel the hammer, can't feel the strikes, until feeling returns? Then it's worse. The pain of cold damaged nerves is excruciating, but you work through it. Must. The snow and ice create additional problems. The grade must be clear before laying track. Snow must be shoveled. Ice must be broken. This is done by hand. Shovels and picks. Before the track crew can work, the clearing crew must work. In winter, they're clearing constantly. Snow falls, accumulates, must be removed. The pace slows dramatically, maybe half a mile per day instead of 2, sometimes less. Sometimes work stops entirely. Blizzards make visibility 0. Winds make any exposed metal dangerous. The workers huddle in bunkhouses, wait for weather to break. Don't get paid during these delays, only paid for work performed. So winter means reduced income, less food, more suffering. The frozen ground creates technical challenges. Driving spikes into frozen wood is nearly impossible. The wood doesn't give, the spike doesn't penetrate. It bends, breaks, requires replacement. The solution is pre-drilling. Someone must drill pilot holes for each spike, using hand drills, brace, and bit. In frozen wood, it's slow, exhausting, adds another step to the process, but necessary. Without it, spikes won't go. Track can't be laid. Construction stops, so they drill. Thousands of holes, millions over the winter months, all by hand, all in conditions that make the work nearly impossible. Spring brings flooding. Snowmelt swells rivers and streams, washes out grades, destroys bridges. The workers must rebuild, sometimes multiple times. A bridge completed in autumn gets destroyed by spring floods, must be rebuilt before track can resume. This is unpaid work often. The company considers it maintenance, doesn't pay construction wages, pays reduced rates, or nothing. The workers have no recourse, no union, no power. They work or they're fired. The mud is omnipresent. The ground thaws, becomes liquid. The workers slog through it, carrying ties, rails, spikes. Your boots sink, stick. You pull them free, take a step, sink again. After hours of this, your legs are lead. The muscles scream. The joints ache. But you continue. Must. The schedule demands progress regardless of conditions. Fall is the best season. Mild temperatures, dry ground, optimal working conditions. The crews push hardest in fall. Try to complete as much track as possible before winter. The pace increases, the pressure intensifies. 16-hour days become common. 7 days per week. No breaks, no days off, just work. Maximize progress while conditions allow. The workers understand this. They know winter is coming. No work will slow or stop. No income will drop. So they push now. Work until exhaustion, until injury, until they can't. Earn as much as possible while the earning is possible. Central Pacific Chinese workers face additional seasonal challenges. The Sierra Nevada winters are extreme. Snow accumulations of 20, 30, and 40 feet. The workers live in camps at elevation, 6,000 feet, 7,000 feet. The snow buries everything. The camps, the work sites. The workers dig tunnels through snow, live beneath it, work beneath it, move through snow tunnels from bunkhouse to work site, never see sun for weeks, months sometimes. The avalanches are constant threat, snow on steep slopes, unstable, breaks loose without warning, thousands of tons sliding at speed, buries whatever's below. Workers in camps, workers at work sites, workers walking between locations. The snow entombs them. Recovery is impossible. The snow is too deep, too heavy. Bodies aren't found until spring thaw. Sometimes not even then. An estimated hundreds die in avalanches. Exact numbers unknown. The companies don't record deaths precisely. Don't want accountability. Just note workers lost to avalanche if they note anything. The Irish workers live in tents on the plains, more exposed than Chinese in tunnels. But avalanches aren't a threat. The trade-offs balance out. Different dangers, different deaths, equal suffering, equal exploitation. These men didn't have YouTube channels. They didn't have anyone telling their story. We're changing that. If you believe their sacrifice deserves recognition, hit subscribe. The Chinese workers were erased from the official photographs. The Irish workers were forgotten. The black workers, around 300 worked for Union Pacific in 1865, disappeared from history. Subscribe if you think that's wrong. If you think we should remember who actually built America, the discrimination goes beyond wages. It's systematic, institutional, violent. The Chinese workers do the most dangerous jobs, blasting tunnels through granite, hanging over cliffs, setting nitroglycerin charges. The Irish won't touch nitroglycerin. It's 13 times more powerful than dynamite. So unstable, it can detonate from a jar or vibration. A Scottish chemist named James Howden mixes it on site, gets hazard pay, soon turns to alcohol from stress, hands the work to Chinese laborers. They set the charges, light the fuses, hope they have time to get clear. The detonations create temperatures of nearly 5,000 degrees Celsius, hot as the sun's surface. The concussion alone can kill. The rock slides, after kill, more. An estimated 1,500 Chinese workers die from explosions and rock slides alone. This doesn't count other deaths, accidents, exposure, disease. The real number is higher, much higher. In 1870, a journalist reports seeing a train loaded with bones, 1,200 Chinese bodies, being returned to China for burial. The Chinese practice Jupi Xinyu, retrieving dead friends. Survivors journey back into the mountains, search for remains of colleagues, collect bones, send them home. The families want proper burial. The workers want to honor their dead. It's the least they can do. June 1867. The Chinese workers strike. Demand equal pay with whites. Demand shorter workdays, 8 hours instead of 12. Demand better working conditions. It's the largest labor action in post-Civil War America. Organized, disciplined, effective. The strike lasts about 8 days. Central Pacific responds brutally, cuts off food supplies to Chinese camps, stops transportation, threatens strikers' lives. The workers have no resources, no savings, can't hold out. The strike ends without pay parity. But it achieves something. Working conditions improve afterward. Hours reduce slightly in some cases. The company leaders are scared, realize the Chinese workers have collective power. The strike doesn't achieve full equality. But it proves the workers aren't passive, aren't compliant. Will organize, will resist, will fight for dignity even when fighting seems futile. The work continues through 1868 and into 1869. Central Pacific battles through mountains. Union Pacific races across plains. They're supposed to meet, but where? The Pacific Railway Act doesn't specify. The companies keep building past each other, each getting paid per mile, getting more land grants. They build parallel tracks, sometimes within sight of each other, wasting money, wasting labor. Congress finally intervenes and orders them to connect, sets the meeting point, Promontory Summit, Utah Territory, May 10, 1869. The ceremony is elaborate, planned, theatrical. 4 ceremonial spikes get created, 2 gold, 1 silver, 1 iron plated with gold and silver. The gold spikes are made from California gold, the silver from Nevada silver, the iron from Arizona metals, symbolizing Western states uniting. A special laurelwood tie gets placed. The ceremonial spikes are driven gently with a silver hammer, tapped, for show. Not actually driven, they'd bend, break, ruin the symbolism. Telegraph wires attached to the spike transmit the hammer sound across the nation. When the final spike is hit, the sound travels by telegraph. People in cities across America hear it. Celebrate. Church bells ring. Cannons fire. The nation celebrates connection, coast to coast, east to west, united. But look at the photographs. Andrew Russell's famous image of the ceremony shows locomotives facing each other, shows dignitaries, railroad executives, military officers, businessmen, politicians. No Chinese workers visible, no Irish laborers, no black workers. The men who actually built the railroad are absent, excluded, erased. This is intentional. The ceremony is for important people. Not workers, not immigrants, not laborers. The actual builders aren't welcome. If you want to go deeper into these stories, if you want early access to videos before anyone else sees them, join the membership. It's for people who don't just watch history, they carry it forward. The Transcontinental Railroad transformed America, made continental trade possible, enabled westward expansion, connected markets, built fortunes. But it was built on the backs of men who got nothing. Join the membership if you want to help us tell these complete stories. Not just the celebratory parts, the brutal parts, the parts everyone wants to forget. The impact is immediate and enormous. The 6-month wagon journey from coast to coast drops to 6 days by train. Commerce explodes, goods move rapidly, costs plummet, the Great Plains open to settlement, towns appear along the railroad, grow into cities, the buffalo herds get decimated, trains bring hunters, sport hunters, commercial hunters. They shoot buffalo from train windows, leave carcasses rotting. The herds that sustain Native Americans for millennia are destroyed in decades. This is intentional. Government policy, military strategy, destroy the buffalo, destroy Native American independence. Force them onto reservations, make them dependent. The railroad makes this possible, accelerates it, completes it. The environmental and cultural destruction is massive, permanent. The workers who built the railroad see little benefit. Union Pacific and Central Pacific complete construction. Don't need thousands of workers anymore. 25,000 Chinese and Irish workers become unemployed immediately. Some find work on other railroad projects. Many don't. Many face violence. Anti-Chinese sentiment explodes. The Chinese workers are blamed for unemployment, for low wages, for everything wrong. Violence is endemic. Chinese neighborhoods burn. Workers get attacked, murdered. In 1882, Congress passes the Chinese Exclusion Act, bans Chinese immigration, first federal law restricting immigration based on race. Won't be repealed until 1943. During World War II, the Chinese who stay face systematic discrimination, can't own property in many areas, can't testify in court against whites, can't become citizens, can't vote, are segregated, marginalized, attacked. They form Chinatowns for safety, for community, for survival. These become cultural centers, economic hubs, places where Chinese Americans preserve identity despite hostility. The railroad continues expanding. More lines, more miles, more workers. The techniques refined on the transcontinental get applied elsewhere. The spike driving process becomes standardized, optimized, mechanical. But it remains fundamentally the same. Human muscle, sledgehammers, repetitive motion. Only in the 20th century do machines begin replacing men. Mechanical spike drivers, powered by steam, later diesel, later electric. These machines can drive hundreds of spikes per hour, faster than any human crew, more consistent. Don't tire, don't require wages, don't organize, don't strike. The workers get displaced. Find other jobs, or don't. The Industrial Revolution continues. Machines replace humans across industries. The men who built the Transcontinental Railroad with their hands and backs become obsolete, forgotten, erased. Today, railroad construction is mechanized. A modern track-laying machine can lay miles of track per day, with minimal human labor. A crew of dozens does what required thousands in 1869. The efficiency is impressive. The speed is remarkable. But something is lost. The human element. The understanding of what building actually cost. Not in dollars, in bodies, in lives, in suffering. The Transcontinental Railroad cost about $50 million to build. That's $1.4 billion in modern money. But the real cost? Unknown. Hundreds dead, thousands injured, tens of thousands exploited, paid barely subsistence wages, worked to exhaustion, discarded when no longer needed. That cost doesn't appear in financial ledgers, doesn't get calculated, doesn't get acknowledged, but it's real, more real than the money. The survivors carried it. Physical damage, broken bodies, chronic pain, disabilities. They suffered for decades after. The families carried it, widows, orphans, parents who buried children, communities who lost members. They remembered when official history forgot. The legacy is complex. The Transcontinental Railroad is celebrated as a triumph, an engineering marvel, American achievement, symbol of progress. All true. It transformed the nation, made America truly continental, enabled economic growth, facilitated westward expansion, connected markets and people, changed everything. But it was built by exploited labor, by immigrants desperate enough to accept brutal conditions, by workers who had no choice, no alternative, no power. They built America's future while having none themselves. That's the reality. That's what we remember, not to diminish the achievement, but to complete the story, to acknowledge all of it, the triumph and the tragedy, the progress and the cost, the innovation and the exploitation. Both are true, both matter. The men who drove 7.6 million spikes by hand made modern America possible. They deserve recognition. They deserve remembrance. They deserve their names in history books. Most won't get that. Their names are lost. But their work remains. Every railroad track in America descends from those first 1,907 miles. Every journey taken by rail honors their labor, whether we acknowledge it or not. They built this, with hammers and spikes and broken bodies. That's the truth. That's what matters. That's what we remember. The impact is immediate and enormous. The 6-month wagon journey from coast to coast drops to 6 days by train. Commerce explodes, goods move rapidly, costs plummet, towns appear along the railroad: Cheyenne, Laramie, Rawlins, Elko, Reno, towns that exist only because the railroad put them there. But for Native Americans, the railroad means destruction. The buffalo herds get targeted deliberately. Military policy. General Philip Sheridan says explicitly, destroy the buffalo, destroy Native independence. Between 1865 and 1885, buffalo populations drop from 30 million to under 1,000. This isn't market forces. This is genocide by proxy. The railroad enables it, brings hunters, brings settlers, brings soldiers, brings everything that ends Native American independence. Native tribes resist, attack construction crews, raid camps, tear up track. The Cheyenne, the Lakota, the Arapaho, they fight for their land, their way of life, their survival. The railroad companies respond with military force, Army detachments protect work crews, retaliate for attacks. The violence becomes genocidal. Sand Creek Massacre, Washita River Massacre, Wounded Knee later. The pattern is clear. The Transcontinental Railroad accelerates conquest, makes it efficient, final, inevitable. The workers who drove those spikes participated whether they knew it or not. Their labor built the infrastructure of conquest. This doesn't diminish their suffering, doesn't excuse their exploitation, but it complicates the story, makes it harder, because they were victims and participants simultaneously. Union Pacific and Central Pacific complete construction. 25,000 workers suddenly unemployed. No transition, no severance, just done. Go away. The Chinese workers face particular hardship. Blame for white unemployment. Attacked. Violence is endemic across the West. Los Angeles Chinese Massacre of 1871. San Francisco riots of 1877. Rock Springs Massacre of 1885. The pattern repeats. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 makes it federal policy, bans Chinese immigration, makes existing residents ineligible for citizenship, lasts until 1943. 61 years of official discrimination. The Irish workers face economic hardship, unemployment, poverty. Many disappear into history. The black workers face maximum discrimination. They're black in 1869 America, no opportunities, just survival. The legacy is complex. The Transcontinental Railroad is celebrated. Engineering marvel, American triumph, symbol of progress, all true. It transformed the nation, made America continental, enabled economic growth, connected markets. But it was built by exploited labor, by immigrants desperate enough to accept brutal conditions, by workers with no choice, no alternative, no power. They built America's future while having none themselves. The men who drove 28.6 million hammer blows made modern America possible. They deserve recognition. They deserve remembrance. Most won't get that. Their names are lost, but their work remains. Every railroad track in America descends from those first 1,907 miles. Every train journey honors their labor. Whether we acknowledge it or not, they built this, with hammers and spikes and broken bodies. That's the truth. That's what matters. That's what we remember.